The Great Deception. Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable. What if everything you've been told about personal growth is designed to keep you seeking forever? Think about it. The self-help industry is worth billions. Meditation apps are everywhere. Everyone's talking about raising their vibration and finding their purpose, yet depression and anxiety rates are at all-time highs. Why? Because we've been sold a lie. We've been told that freedom comes from becoming a better version of ourselves. But what if true freedom isn't about becoming anything at all? Here's the radical truth. Most people never escape their mental prison because they're too busy redecorating it. They trade one set of chains for another, shinier set, thinking they're making progress. The spiritual seeker trades the businessman's stress for the meditator's seeking. The conscious person trades the materialist desires for the spiritual person's desires. Different costumes, same prison. Level 1. The survival trap. Let's start at the beginning. The most primitive level of consciousness where most humans spend their lives without realizing it. This is the level of pure reaction. Fight, flight, or freeze. Your amygdala is running the show, and every situation is either a threat or an opportunity for survival. You see this everywhere. The person who can't stop checking their bank account, even when they have plenty of money. The individual who hoards resources just in case. The one who sees every interaction as a potential threat to their security. But here's what's fascinating. Survival consciousness doesn't just show up in obvious ways. It hides behind sophisticated masks in modern life. That compulsive need to check your phone? Survival consciousness. Your brain scanning for social threats. The anxiety when someone doesn't text back immediately. Your primitive brain interpreting silence as potential abandonment or rejection. The relentless drive to accumulate more money, more possessions, more achievements. That's survival consciousness too, just dressed up in modern clothes. People trapped here live in constant fear, even when they're objectively safe. They're always preparing for the next catastrophe, the next threat, the next thing that could go wrong. And here's the cruel irony. The more they try to secure themselves, the more insecure they feel. Because security built on external conditions is always temporary. Talk here, level 2. The pleasure prison. Once basic survival is handled, consciousness naturally seeks the next level. Pleasure and emotional fulfillment. This is where most people think they've found freedom. I'm living my best life, they say. I'm following my passion. But look closer. The pleasure seeker is just as trapped as the survivor. They're just trapped in a more colorful cage. They're constantly chasing the next high, the next experience, the next emotional peak. Think about social media culture, the endless pursuit of likes, comments, shares, the need to document every moment, every meal, every achievement. This isn't freedom, it's emotional addiction. The person stuck here lives on an emotional roller coaster. They're euphoric when things go well, devastated when they don't. Their sense of self is completely dependent on external validation and internal emotional states. They mistake intensity for depth, stimulation for satisfaction. They're always seeking the next relationship, the next adventure, the next purchase that will finally make them feel complete. But emotions, by their very nature, are temporary. What feels amazing today will feel ordinary tomorrow. What excites you this month will bore you next month. So they keep chasing, keep seeking, keep consuming. more experiences, more relationships, more achievements. Always more, never enough. Level 3, the mental maze. Eventually, the emotional roller coaster becomes exhausting. That's when consciousness reaches for the next level, the mind. I need to understand this, they think. I need to figure out why I feel this way, why my life is this way, why the world is this way. Enter the mental maze, the level where most educated people get completely lost. This is the realm of analysis, philosophy, psychology, and endless self-reflection. People here love to understand themselves and others. They read books, take courses, analyze their childhood, their patterns, their relationships. They think understanding equals freedom. If they can just figure out why they are the way they are, they'll be free. But here's the trap. The mind that's trying to understand itself is the same mind that created the problems in the first place. It's like trying to lift yourself up by your own shoelaces. The mental level creates the illusion of progress because it feels so sophisticated. These people can explain their patterns, their triggers, their unconscious beliefs. They have frameworks for everything. But explanation isn't transformation. Understanding isn't liberation. You can analyze your prison cell in great detail, but that doesn't open the door. Worse, the mental level creates a new kind of prison, the prison of being right. People here become attached to their theories, their beliefs, their understanding of how things work. They'd rather be right than free. Level 4, the social cage. The fourth level is perhaps the most invisible trap of all, social consciousness. This is where your sense of self becomes completely dependent on how others see you. You're not just seeking survival, pleasure, or understanding anymore. You're seeking belonging, acceptance, and social validation. This level is incredibly seductive because it feels noble. I want to contribute, people say. I want to make a difference. But look deeper. The social level is where you lose yourself completely. You become what others want you to be. You wear masks, play roles, and perform versions of yourself that get approval. Your authentic self gets buried under layers of social conditioning. You start believing that you are your role, the successful entrepreneur, the loving parent, the spiritual teacher, the helpful friend. But these are just costumes, and the exhaustion of constantly performing, constantly being on, constantly managing your image is soul-crushing. People at this level are often successful in conventional terms. They have good careers, nice relationships, social status. But inside, they feel empty. They've traded their authentic self for social acceptance. The tragic part is that they don't even know who they really are anymore. They've been wearing masks for so long that they've forgotten their original face. Level 5, the spiritual seeking trap. Now we get to the level where most people think they've found the answer, spiritual consciousness. This is where meditation, mindfulness, energy work, and spiritual practices become the new identity. People here have often experienced genuine glimpses of something beyond the ordinary, moments of peace, unity, or transcendence. But here's the cruel twist. Spiritual seeking often becomes the most sophisticated prison of all. The spiritual seeker trades the businessman's stress for the meditator's seeking. They're still chasing something. Now it's enlightenment, awakening, or higher consciousness. They collect experiences, practices, and teachers like trophies. I've done ayahuasca. I've been to India. I've studied with masters. But but they're still seeking. The spiritual ego is often more stubborn than the regular ego because it's convinced it's on the right path. It's harder to see the trap when the trap is decorated with crystals, incense, and beautiful philosophy. People at this level often look down on those at lower levels. They think they're more evolved, more conscious, more awake. But superiority is just ego wearing spiritual clothes. They're still trapped in the seeking mind, still looking for something outside themselves to complete them. Now it's just called awakening instead of success or love. Level 6, the unity illusion. The 6th level is where things get really tricky. This is the level of unity consciousness, where the sense of separation begins to dissolve. People here experience genuine states of oneness, unconditional love, and deep peace. They feel connected to everything and everyone. The boundaries between self and other become fluid. This level is incredibly beautiful and profound. It's where most spiritual teachings point to as the ultimate goal. But it's not the end of the journey. Why? Because there's still someone there experiencing the unity. There's still a subtle sense of, I am experiencing oneness. There's still a very refined form of identity present. People at this level often become teachers, healers, or guides. They genuinely want to help others because they've tasted something real. But they can still get trapped in the identity of being the one who knows. The unity level is seductive because it feels so complete, so peaceful, so loving. But it's still a state, and all states are temporary. When the unity experience fades, and it always does, there's often a subtle grasping to get back to it, a seeking to return to that state of oneness. Level 7, the final freedom. Now we come to the final level, the one that actually delivers on the promise of freedom. This isn't a state you achieve or an experience you have. It's what you discover when you've completely exhausted the search itself. At this level, there's no one left to be free. Freedom isn't something you attain. It's what you are when all the seeking stops. There's no more spiritual identity, no more practices to maintain, no more states to achieve. There's just what is as it is, without the need for it to be different. This might sound like nothing, and in a way it is nothing, but it's the most profound nothing you could ever discover. The person appears to function normally from the outside, but inside, the whole mechanism of seeking, grasping, and becoming has stopped. There is no more resistance to what is. This isn't a blissful state or a peak experience. It's utterly ordinary. It's the ordinariness of your true nature without all the extra stuff piled on top. The freedom here isn't freedom from something. It's freedom as the very nature of what you are. The pathless path. So how do you get there? Here's the paradox that stops most people in their tracks. You can't get there from here. Every effort to reach this final level is made by the very consciousness that needs to dissolve. It's like trying to bite your own teeth. The path to pathlessness isn't about doing more. It's about seeing through the illusion that there's anywhere to go or anyone to become. It's about recognizing that what you're seeking is what's looking. The freedom you want is what you already are beneath all the layers of identity and seeking. This doesn't mean you stop living or functioning. It means you stop the exhausting project of trying to become someone else. The practices, the teachers, the experiences, they're not wrong, but they're not the answer either. They're fingers pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. The real practice is simply staying present with what is, without the need to change, improve, or transcend it. When you truly see that there's nowhere to go and nothing to achieve, something profound relaxes. The whole seeking mechanism just stops. And what remains is what was always there, your true nature, free from the prison of becoming. The deception of progress. Here's something that might shatter your worldview. The idea of spiritual progress is the biggest lie ever sold to seekers. We've been conditioned to think consciousness is like climbing a ladder, that you start at the bottom and work your way up. Level 1, then 2, then 3, and so on until you reach some imaginary finish line called enlightenment. But this linear model is what keeps people trapped forever. The truth is, you don't graduate from one level to another. You don't leave behind survival consciousness or emotional patterns. They're all still there, operating simultaneously. Watch yourself for a day. Notice how you can be discussing profound spiritual concepts in the morning, then find yourself road raging in traffic an hour later. How you can feel deep unity during meditation, then get triggered by a social media comment. This isn't failure, it's the human condition. The mistake is thinking you need to transcend these levels rather than see through the one who's trying to transcend them. The spiritual ego loves the idea of levels because it gives it something to achieve, something to become. I'm working on myself, it says. I'm evolving. But who is this I that's supposedly evolving? This is the fundamental question that stops most seekers in their tracks. They're so busy trying to improve themselves that they never ask who this self actually is. The Watchers, watching the Watchers. Let's do an experiment right now. As you're listening to this, notice that there's awareness of these words. There's something that's aware of your thoughts about these words. There's something that's aware of you being aware. Now, can you find the one who's aware? Can you locate this awareness? Can you point to it, describe it, or contain it in any way? This is what I call the Watchers watching the Watchers phenomenon. Most people get lost in an infinite regress of self-observation. They become the spiritual person watching the emotional person, then the wise person watching the spiritual person, then the awakened person watching the wise person. It's turtles all the way down. But here's what nobody tells you. The one who's trying to watch is made of the same stuff as what's being watched. The observer and the observed are not two separate things. When you really see this, not understand it conceptually, but see it directly, something fundamental shifts. The whole project of self-improvement collapses because there's no solid self to improve. Why most teachers keep you seeking. Now I'm going to say something that might make some people uncomfortable. Most spiritual teachers, whether they realize it or not, have a vested interest in keeping you seeking. Think about it economically. If you actually got it, if you realized there's nothing to get, what would happen to the endless workshops, retreats, courses, and sessions? The spiritual marketplace thrives on the idea that you're broken and need fixing, that you're asleep and need awakening, that you're unconscious and need consciousness. But what if you're already what you're seeking? What if consciousness is what you are, not what you need to achieve? This doesn't mean teachers are consciously deceiving you, Most are sincere and have had genuine insights. But the very structure of the teacher-student relationship reinforces the idea that the student lacks something the teacher has. The most honest thing a true teacher can tell you is this: you already are what you're looking for. Now stop looking. But that's not a very sustainable business model, is it? The end of seeking. The journey through these 7 levels isn't really a journey at all. It's more like waking up from a dream where you thought you were someone else. Most people will spend their entire lives moving between the first 6 levels, thinking they're making progress. But true freedom isn't at the end of the spiritual path. It's in the recognition that there is no path. The person who realizes this doesn't become special or enlightened. They simply stop the exhausting game of trying to be someone else. And in that stopping, they discover what they were looking for was never lost in the first place. Here's the final paradox. The moment you truly give up the search, you find what you were looking for. Not because giving up is another technique, but because what you were seeking was obscured by the very act of seeking. It's like looking everywhere for your glasses while they're on your head. The searching is what prevents the finding. The prison door was never locked. You just forgot how to stop trying to escape. When this is seen clearly, life doesn't change dramatically from the outside. You still have preferences, still feel emotions, still function in the world. But the desperate seeking, the constant sense that something's missing, the exhausting project of becoming someone else, all of that just stops. And what remains is utterly ordinary and completely extraordinary at the same time. It's the ordinariness of your true nature without all the drama of seeking piled on top. This is what true freedom looks like. Not the absence of experience, but the absence of resistance to experience. Not the transcendence of humanity, but the embrace of what you actually are beneath all the stories. If this video has shown you something you can't unsee, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the spiritual noise to get to what actually matters. And remember, the truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always liberating. The question is, are you ready to stop seeking and start being?